Well, welcome to the Food for Data interview series. Today, we are joined by Ying, who is the Global Head of People Analytics at PepsiCo, and she will be giving us an introduction into people analytics. And it's something that we've not had on the series before, so I'm really excited to be doing this interview with you today, Ying. So yeah, welcome.
Thank you, Natalia. I'm really honored to be the first speaker, with the people analytics background on this series. So yeah, a quick introduction to people analytics. I mean, people analytics itself is not a discipline or a major in college, but rather it is about applying science and technology to analyze people data in an organization, right? So as to achieve business outcome. And in particular, it involves developing advanced analytical solutions, offering insights, recommendation to assist the business and HR leaders on important decision makings, about the entire life cycle of employees within the company, ranging from talent acquisition to development, deployment, engagement, serve, and even the exit. Sometimes people analytics is also known as HR analytics or talent analytics, and it is a relatively new field, but it is gaining a lot of popularity and attention as companies, realize the power of data, to leverage the data to help make better decisions about their people, which ultimately will lead to cost reduction, improved productivity, and more engaged employees. And speaking of the technology or the skills needed, people analytics can leverage any data science techniques in the area of statistical modeling, artificial intelligence, including both supervised and unsupervised learning, as well as the latest and the hottest generative AI technology. And also, needless to say, it will require data wrangling and program skills, as well as business acumen and HR domain knowledge.
Amazing. Well, thank you for that that introduction on people analytics. Like I said, we've not spoken about this on the series, so really excited to kind of get into the nitty gritty of it on this chat today. So, probably leads into my second question. So, how can people analytics be applied to predict the likelihood of voluntary employee attrition? And I suppose what data factors are typically considered in building those predictive models, and how do you ensure the success of that work?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question, Natalia. Given the backdrop of great resignation and the talent wars, right, it has become increasingly important for companies to retain their employees. So predicting employees' voluntary attrition risks and subsequently proactively retaining them, right, through effective interventions have become a very well-studied area. And generally speaking, there are many reasons that will impact an employee's, voluntary attrition behaviors. So for instance, employees' demographics, company's compensation benefits, right? The company's culture, employees' performance, their career development and growth within the company, the level of their workforce, work-life balance, engagement, and even the quality and stability of their managers, right, will impact, the employees' attrition behaviors. So all these factors, will come into play, when an employee decides to, leave or stay with the company.
Yeah.
Now, as you can see, some of those reasons can be easily captured by existing data points in the company. For instance, the demographics, employees' compensation, performance, right, their career development in the company, or even the team stabilities. Mm-hmm. But others could be rather difficult to be identified from existing HR database. So for instance, the company's culture, it's very hard to quantify, right, using data points, or the employee's life, work-life balance. So those are kind of the challenges to capture the reasons using the actual data points. A general advice in this case, right, is to develop the attrition prediction solution in phases, where phase one includes all the factors that can be easily supported by existing data points. Then, you can train the predictive model and observe the performance. Now, if the performance is above an acceptable level, then the suggestion is that the team can then start socializing the attrition risk data among the HR and the business leaders, right? Help them understand the methodology, the logic behind the model, the key attrition drivers, and jointly explore use cases, where such risk data can be used to implement proactive retention, or even to develop the retention strategy in the organization, right? Now, once the work has gained some tractions, then the team can start phase two, where they can explore the additional data points, which might be a bit more time consuming and challenging to collect, to clean, and to aggregate. And you asked about how to ensure the success of such work, right? I mean, essentially, the key to make such employee attrition prediction work successful is really to drive its adoption, its use among the HR and the business leaders, right? And to ensure that appropriate actions will be taken based on the data insights. I mean, the power of the data is not at PowerPoints, right? The power of the data is really with the actions that will be taken based on insights. Yeah, so that's really the key to success in this case.
Amazing. And when it comes to talent development, for example, so that also comes into play. How can companies strategically align employee reskilling efforts with their particular goals?
Yeah, really good question. Personally, very passionate about the reskilling and upskilling space. Nowadays people is talking about skills. Everybody's talking about skills, as it has become the new currency of our workforce and the talent strategy. And according to some study, the half-life of skills is only 5 years. So which means that half of what is learned today will become obsolete or be forgotten after 5 years. So that is a very short, span, right? So what this really means is that employees need to continuously upskill and reskill themselves. However, when it comes to reskill, it is very critical to figure out how we can help employees build new skills that are strategically aligned with the company's goals, while at the same time ensuring there is a higher, reskilling success. So to solve this problem, there are essentially two components in this case. The first one is the strategic skills planning at the company level. That is, the company, first of all, needs to have a plan on what existing skills to downsize, to keep, or even to expand, and then what new skills to build and grow based on its understanding of existing skills portfolio within the company, as well as its business strategy and the direction, right? So these, the first component is really at the company level. Company needs to have a clear goal and a strategy. But then the second component is, now once we know, we understand about company skill strategy, then we need to identify at the employee level what is the right new skills for them to build, right? And for this question, there are actually two, I would say, inherent challenges in this case. The first one is, how do we know what new skills an employee needs to be reskilled to, right? I mean, let's say there are 10 new skills the company wants to have the employees to build, but out of these 10, should I reskill myself to all these 10, or should I just reskill myself to one or two of them, right? How do I know? This is the first question. And the second question is that who needs to be reskilled? I mean, we have, let's say you have 1,000 employees. How do I know, whom should we pick and choose, right, to be reskilled? So these are really like two key questions to address in this case. So let's look at them one by one. Now, for the first question, what new skills to build? There's a very important concept in this case called a skills similarity. So which indicates how similar two skills are to each other. So for instance, Java programming is probably more similar to Python programming as it is compared to, let's say, a hardware chip design, right? So now from that perspective, if an employee already have Java skills, then it will be much easier to reskill that employee to build the Python coding skills as compared to reskill that employee to be a chip designer,
Yeah,
right?
makes sense.
So the answer to this question is that, hey, we want to, reskill an employee to something that is similar or related to his or her existing skills, instead of, reskilling him or her to something drastically different, right? So that's kind of the solution to the first question. Now, the second question is that, how do we determine whom to be reskilled, right? Now, first of all, we would like to prioritize the employees whose existing skills are going to be downsized by the company, right? So we want to prepare those employees for the future. So, and then second of all, again, we can consider the skill similarity concept. If we know which new skills we need more employees, then we can find people who possess similar skills. So those people will be, more successful, to be reskilled to these new skills. And the third one is really, we can or we should also focus on employees who are more intellectually curious, have a higher propensity to learn, and are more open-minded. So those are the employees who are eager, right, to build and learn new things. And it will be quicker for them to learn and with a higher, likelihood of being successful, right, in this reskilling space. So as you can see, at the end of the day, if we can optimize who to reskill and what to reskill, we would have addressed the core part of talent development. And of course, the other part is on how to reskill, right? And that's where the learning team, will come into play.
Yeah, definitely. Couldn't agree more on that. And we've also, I know we've spoken about talent deployment. So what are the key components of developing an efficient and effective internal talent marketplace, I guess?
Yeah. Good question. Talent deployment, which is equivalent to internal, mobility, is really about identifying internal opportunities for employees so that they can gain various experience and build a diverse set of skills, right? This is also a great way for the company to retain its people, right? Now, essentially, this is really about matching an employee's existing skills, experience, his or her desire for some, new experience to build, and then the internal opportunities, right? It's really a matching problem. So you can really consider this as a similar problem to matching a job candidate's resume with a job opening, right? Based on the location, skills, experience, all these dimensions. Now, on the other hand, there are some additional elements we can leverage for internal employees because those are not actually candidates. Those are existing employees, right? So we know more about them than we know about a job candidate, right? So examples, include, hey, we know our employees' performance, their current position level, their tenure in level, or even the level of their skills, right, along different dimensions. So these are all, good information that we have about our employees, which can really help us, do a much better job in matching their skills, experience with the job opening, internal opportunities, right? And another key component to ensure the success of such internal talent marketplace is to make the system adaptable to employees' input or the actions they take or do not take. And in other words, the system should be smart enough to be able to learn and improve its recommendations based on employees' behaviors. So for instance, if the employee opened the recommendation link from this internal marketplace, but they didn't take any further actions to follow through. So this probably means that the recommendation does not meet the employee's, criteria. And alternatively, if the system noticed that, hey, these employees tends to click on the recommendation for a specific type of role instead of others, then, you can derive that, hey, likely this employee is only interested to explore or pursue similar type of roles. So then, going forward, this recommender can potentially only, push more similar job roles to these employees, right? So then, this will really help improve the success rate, if you will, of such internal talent marketplace. So you see that, so all these elements needs to be taken into account, simultaneously in order to develop an efficient and effective internal talent marketplace.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess like it can't always be successful. I'm guessing people analytics does come with its challenges as well. So it'd be interesting to find out what these would be when it comes to matching supply with demand, addressing attrition, and then managing those people that you're bringing on board.
Yeah, that's a really kind of relevant question. And workforce planning is a very classical problem in the people analytics area, which, as you said, is essential about matching supply with demand, right? And in this case, demand really means, it could be ongoing BAU work, any new projects that are, forthcoming, or anything that are in pipelines with a near distant timeline, right? And supply in this case, indicates the existing resources slash employees, right? So in order to achieve a good matching, we definitely need to consider the following things. First is the skills element. We are going back to the skill element. I mean, a resource wouldn't be useful if he or she doesn't possess the needed skills for the new project, right? And in this case, skill similarity can be taken into account as well. Sometimes it's very hard to find the exact skills that you need, but if someone has similar skills, then it probably will pay off that, train that employee a little bit, right? Gain the new skills, and then, assign them to the new project. So that's the first element. Second element is the resource availability or utilization. I mean, a project can only be started when people are freed up, right, from their existing, projects, or if they can spare some portion of their current bandwidth for the new project. So that's the availability aspect. And the third one is, I think you touched upon a little bit, which is the employee attrition. I mean, people come and go, right? So when you think about the workforce planning, definitely need to take into account the potential attritions, especially the voluntary attritions. Fold that into the equations. And sometimes, people will even take into account, their vacation plans, right? The planned time off, if the project has a very short turnaround timeline. The last one is the predicted hiring, volume. It's the inflow, right? Attrition is the outflow, and we have the inflow coming from the hiring. Now, hiring definitely will change the view on the equation as well. Provided that you have those professional hires who can ready to onboard the project on their day one, right? So those will definitely play a critical role in the workforce plan.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it's not an easy task. Workforce planning actually is a very challenging task, but if we can do it right, it will for sure, create, it will be a big win for the business.
Yeah, definitely. And finally, I suppose we can conclude on this bit a little bit. So when it comes to talent service, how can generative AI technology, such as the likes of chatbot, which you mentioned before, be leveraged to enhance the employee experience? And what benefits can this technology bring to the whole organization? Because we know, like, at the minute, generative AI is huge.
Yeah, I love this question. I mean, generative AI is definitely the latest and the hottest thing in the world now, right? Everybody's talking about generative AI, and many people are, actually experiencing, not just using it, but trying to develop, their own, solutions, tools using this technology. Within HR, I mean, there are many use cases for leveraging the large language model, which is, really the technology behind the chatbot, right? So in this case, having a chat interface or having a chatbot to interact with the employees will for sure directly impact the employees' experience. And in fact, nowadays, most of companies, they like to already have some sort of chatbots supporting different applications or systems, right? Which could be either built by the companies themselves, or provided by the vendor of those systems or applications. So for instance, IT may have its own chatbot trying to resolve employees' technology related issues, right, through a dialogue, or guide them to submit tickets through the chatbot. On the other hand, the travel system may have its own chatbot, right, assisting employees on questions, problems encountered during, booking travels or submitting expenses. So as a result, employees have to log on to different systems or applications for different problems, which could become frustrating, at a certain point, especially when they don't know, where exactly to go, right? So with that, then, if we could have a chatbot which is backed by generative AI, it may bring a unified and a streamlined experience to employees, in the sense that it can seamlessly interact with different background, different chatbots in the background, without letting the employees knows what's going on in the back end. So for employee, they are only interactive with the one single chatbot, which can handle whatever questions that they have, right? So it's like, there's no wrong door. You just, here you go, talk to these chatbots, and everything, it will handle whatever questions that you have. So that will be a really simplified and great experience, right, for the employees. So this will really like bring a complete end-to-end experience to the users, whether it is about hiring, promotion, learning, internal move, etc. And also the other point I want to make here is that, the large language model behind such chatbot, will allow employees to ask general questions instead of pre-designed, pre-categorized questions, right? And along with many other capabilities that it has, such as content summarization, content creation, language translations, and so on. These are really kind of the strengths of, a large language model, right? So putting all this together, the company will have more engaged, happier, and more productive, employees in this case. Yeah. I mean, personally, I'm very excited about this new technology, what it can bring to the organization, to the workforce. But, I just want to point out that, on the other hand, companies need to clearly define data governance, the guidelines and the policies on how to safely use generative AI within the company, right? So that employees can use this technology in a more responsible manner. And that's also very important, the technology and the governance, I really believe that they should come in hand in hand.
Definitely. I couldn't agree with you more on that last bit. There's so much about AI, and there's lots of benefits to it, but there's lots of areas to it that people get scared about as well. but no, I think we concluded on that quite well. Thank you for joining us today, Ying, just to discuss people analytics and doing a bit of an introduction to it. It's really nice to have that on the series, and it looks like it is becoming a lot more popular. There's a lot of success stories from it as well. So no, it's been great to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, to speak on this series.